What's up guys, it's Coding with ArsenTech, and today I will show you how to make a tic-tac-toe game with both 2-player mode and player versus PC mode using React. We will use a Minimax algorithm to build a hard AI of tic-tac-toe. Are you looking for the source code of advanced and challenging coding tutorials? Join my Patreon page and unlock access to source codes for complex projects and coding tutorials. It is a great way to support the channel and level up your coding skills. Head over to my Patreon page and start exploring some source codes of complex projects today. Link is in description. So, without any further ado, let's get started! In order to create a tic-tac-toe, all you need is two files, X and O. Let's create a new folder called Tic Tac Toe React. I linked those two files in the description so you can download it or you can create your own. After creating a Tic Tac Toe React folder, let's open the folder with code, open the terminal and type npm create vid at latest dot. It says need to install the following packages. Type Y and hit enter. Select a framework called React and select TypeScript. Now type npm install and hit enter. While it is installing, move these files to the public folder in the project Tic-Tac-Toe React.
Many minutes later.
npm install added 181 packages in 6 minutes. Why 6 minutes? Because my internet is working so slow. Let's run the development server. As you can see, the development server has started in port 5173. Let's open it. By default, the project should look like this, because it is initialized via vid. And this is the default counter. And remove some default logos created by vid. Also, let's remove the style. For the font, we will use Google Fonts. The font we need is Open Sans. Let's copy the import. Let's initialize values. Margin 0, padding 0, box sizing border box, font family is Open Sans by default. I will explain this code. So, Open Sans here is the main font, while these fonts are fallback fonts. Which means if Open Sans does not exist, one of these fonts are using as a main font. Okay, let's code the tic-tac-toe game. First, let's create a component called Tic-Tac-Toe Square. For the tic-tac-toe square component, we need an interface called tic-tac-toe square props, which includes item, which type is string, handle choose square, which type is a function that returns void, a disabled, which type is boolean, is matching pattern, which type is also boolean. Now let's create a function called tic-tac-toe square. And now we will include an item only. And we will return a single div element. But for class names, we use a class names, which is an array that checks if item exists, item remains the same, otherwise the item is removed. And we will convert the array to a string by using space as a separator. We will add the class names in the div, so our component will be styled. Then I will create an image source variable which checks if item is X, then returns an image of an X. If item is O, return an image of an O, otherwise it will return an empty string. And then we will include the images here. After that, we will add the handle choose square function, which executes when I click on this element. I will add the disabled and checks if disabled, the class names will add a disabled as a class name. And is matching pattern to check. If pattern matches, then the class will be active. On the app.ts6 file, we will create an element which class name is Tic Tac Toe Container. Inside this element, we'll create an h1 called Tic Tac Toe, another div with class name of Tic Tac Toe Game, and inside of that, we will create an element with class name of Tic Tac Toe Square. On the app.css file, let's style the game. Let's add a class name called Tic Tac Toe Container. And add the following properties: display flex, justify content center, align item center, flex direction column. So those lines, I've added a width to 100%, min height to 100 VH, and I'll choose the background color and color. You can choose any color if you want. Then added a tic-tac-toe game class, which is a 3x3 grid. Then added an h1 a font size, which is a 50 pixels. A tic-tac-toe square, the following properties, which is a 145 pixels by 145 pixels square. And also, I will make the cursor to pointer. On disabled, we will add the properties user select none, pointer events none. But on the active class, we will change the background color to white. Here is what the initial game looks like. Let's make this 3x3 grid. For that, we will create a folder named data, and inside the data folder, let's create a constants.ts file, where I can put a constant here. Let's make a constant called initial board, which type is a string array. And which value is this? This is a representation of a 3x3 grid in array. We will import the initial board and a tic-tac-toe square to app.ts6 file, and now let's create a state called board with initial value is the initial board constant. This is the getter and this is the setter, and we will replace the tic-tac-toe square to this. It loops through the elements and creates a tic-tac-toe square, which item is the SQ parameter, and the disable value checks if square is not empty. Here we got a 3x3 grid. Okay, now let's test something. If I put X here, it works. And if I put an O here, it works. But we will replace it with new array, which length is 9, and we will fill the array with empty strings. Now we will create a two states. A player state, which initial value is X, and an is started state, which value is false. Now we will create a file called types.ts, and in here we will add some types. We will create an enum called tic-tac-toe state, which has three values: ongoing, win, and draw. Ongoing means the game is still going, win is game is finished and someone won, and draw is when the game is finished and it is a draw. Now let's create a type tic-tac-toe mode, which has three values: an empty string, two players, and player versus PC. And now let's create an interface called iTicTacToe state. Do not confuse iTicTacToe state with tic-tac-toe state, which has a winner, which is a string, state, which is a tic-tac-toe state type, mode, which type is a tic-tac-toe mode, pattern, which type is a number array. Now we will import an iTicTacToe state and tic-tac-toe state types, because we need to create an initial state constant, which type is an iTicTacToe state, and it is an object. which has a properties like winner, state, mode, and pattern. The winner is an empty string, the state is a tic-tac-toe state.ongoing, mode is an empty string too, and pattern is an empty array. On the app.tsx file, we will import the initial state constant and we will create a state called GameState. Which value is the initial state constant. Now we have 4 states: board, player, started, and GameState. Now we will import a tic-tac-toe state and let's create a handle choose square function which accepts a square as a parameter which type is a number. And check if a board on square index does not exist or the state is not ongoing, then quit the function. Otherwise, execute the setBoard function which returns an array. We are using a map method and using a SQ and index as the parameters. And checks if an index is equal to a mentioned square. If yes, then add the player to the board. Otherwise, it will remain unchanged. And set the player to check if a previous value is x, then set to O, otherwise set to x. Okay, let's make sure you will add the following code to a tic-tac-toe square. Now let's test it. It works. Let's update the component part. Check if is started, then put a P which says a game state, then add a tic-tac-toe board, and then add 2 buttons. One of them is restart and one of them is go back to the menu. Otherwise, render a button that says 1 players and 2 players. We will import the tic-tac-toe state and tic-tac-toe mode from data types, and we will create a resetGameState function which accepts overrides as a parameter. Then set board to an initial board, set player to x, then set GameState to a previous value but also an overrides object. Then create a startGame function which accepts mode as a parameter. Then we will set isGameStarted to true. We will set the GameState to the previous values but also an updated version of a mode property. Then we will create a restartGame function which resets a game to the following: winner is none, state is tic-tac-toe state ongoing, pattern is an empty array. And now let's put these buttons: button on click, restart game, button on click, start game, player versus PC on 1 players, and button on click, start game 2 players on 2 players. Let's style the buttons. On the app.css file, we will add a buttons class, a following styles. We will make it to center. We will make it place from up to down. We will add some spacing, width, and margin top. On the TTT text class, we will add the following styles. And with this class, we will give a width to 100%. We will give a button a padding, border, color, font size, font weight, border radius. We will remove the background. We will capitalize the button contents. We will add the transition and the cursor pointer. When you hover your mouse over the button, the background and the color will change. Here is what will look like if I go to 2 players. The game is not finished, but the restart button works well. We will disable the buttons if GameState.state is not ongoing. Let's create a helpers.ts file, and in helpers.ts file we will write a helper function. In order to check if x is 1 or o is 1, we need a pattern. So we need to create a constant called patterns, which type is a number 2-dimensional array, and inside of that we will put these mentioned ones. This one checks the pattern horizontally, this one checks the pattern vertically, this one checks the pattern diagonally. In helpers.ts file we will import the patterns and create a function called checkIfWins, which accepts two parameters. One of them is a board, which is a string array. One of them is a callback function. And then loop through patterns. We will extract the free values A, B, C from a pattern. Then check if board A exists and check if board A is equal to board B and board A is equal to board C. If yes, then check if callback function exists, then call the callback function. And then return true if these conditions are met. Otherwise, return false. In the app.tsx file, we will import a useEffect and checkIfWins function. We will create a useEffect hook which accepts a board as a dependency. Then create a winning pattern variable, which is a number array and the initial value is an empty array. Then check if checkIfWins board and then a callback function. We will set the game state to the following. We will set the winner, we will set the game state to a win state, and we will set the pattern. Let's give them in action. It works. Let's add is matching pattern, which equals to the following. Game state pattern includes I. But in here, it doesn't check if it is a draw or not. Now let's create a constant called getEmptySquares, which is a function that accepts board as a string. And then loops through values and check if value is empty, then return the index of that, otherwise null. And then filter it and check if the value is not null. Then create a function called isDraw, which accepts board and pattern as parameters. Then get an empty squares and check if the empty squares array is empty and a pattern is empty too. If those conditions are met, then it is a draw. And on the app.tsx file, we will check if isDraw, then set the game state to the following, where state is a tic-tac-toe state draw. Let's check. In this case x1, this case x1 2. In this case it is a draw. But in this case, X is a winner. And with this, we have finished a tic-tac-toe in a 2-player mode. Now on to the 1-player mode. We will create a go back to menu function, which resets the game state to initial state and sets is started to false. Let's add this function also. It returns to a main menu. We will create a type called Tic-Tac-Toe Difficulty, which accepts 4 values: empty string, easy, medium, and hard. And we will add the Tic-Tac-Toe difficulty into a tic-tac-toe state. And then we will add it here. And then we will create a constant called difficulties, which is a tic-tac-toe difficulty array. And we will import the tic-tac-toe difficulty from the types.ts file. and we will set it to 3 values: easy, medium, and hard in one array. And now we will import the difficulties and tic-tac-toe difficulty from the files constants and types. Then create a start gaming difficulty function, which starts again in the mentioned difficulty, which is easy, medium, and hard. Then check if game state mode is 2 players or game state difficulty is not empty. Then render the game. Otherwise, render a layout which chooses the difficulty, starting from a text and the buttons. Here is what the game will look like. Let's show which difficulty I choose. We will show the difficulty by adding this line of code here. Now it shows which difficulty we are in. But the problem is, it works as in 2-player mode. To fix this, we will add a following line which checks if game state mode is player versus PC and player is not X. It works. Now let's add an AI difficulty. In helpers.ts file, we will export a function called getRandomMove, which accepts board as a parameter. Then inside this function, we are creating an empty squares array, a random move variable which generates a random value from an empty squares array, and then it returns random value from an empty square array. Now we will create a PCMove function. Inside of this function, we will create a move, which is a number, and check if game state difficulty is easy. We will get a random move. I will replace the -1 to a different scenario of getting a move created by AI. Then we will set the board to an O in the mentioned index. And then we will set the player to X. We will create another use effect which accepts game state and player as dependencies and check if game state mode is player versus PC and player is not X, and also state is ongoing. If yes, create a timer that executes a PCMove function and clear it. This code executes a function every 0.5 seconds. As you can see, AI is placing a random move, which makes games very easy for the players. On to the medium one. In helpers.txt, we need to create a move in medium mode. First, let's create a function called findBlockingMove, which accepts board as a parameter. And then loop through the patterns and get the board values from the patterns. And check if values has 2 x's and includes a 1 empty string, then return a blocking move, which is a pattern which indexes values.index of an empty string. Otherwise, return null. And now let's create a function called getMediumMove, which accepts board as a parameter and checks if findBlockingMove is null, then getRandomMove. This function checks if findBlockingMove is null, then returns a random move. Otherwise, returns a blocking move. We will add the function here. Check if GameState.difficulty is medium, then getMediumMove. Board. Otherwise, -1. Let's test it out. AI is stronger than on easy level, but still beatable. On the hard mode, we will use a Minimax algorithm. But what exactly is Minimax? Think about playing tic-tac-toe. Minimax allows the computer to anticipate future moves and responses, helping it select the optimal choice, maximizing its chance of winning or at least forcing a draw. It is similar to facing a perfect strategist, the computer who aims to maximize his score. You work to minimize it. Picture it as a tug-of-war. Both sides are striving for victory. The algorithm constructs a game tree to assess all potential outcomes. Each move branches out with the final results at the leaves. Plus 10 means X wins, negative 10 means O wins, 0 means draw. By working backward from these outcomes, the computer guarantees it never makes a random move, whether it's securing a win or forcing a draw. This strategy makes it unbeatable. In the next segment of this video, we will dive into coding this in React.js. Let's get started! Let's implement the Minimax algorithm. But first, let's create a return type. We will create an interface called iMinimaxReturnType, which accepts two properties, an index and score, which both of them are numbers. Let's create a Minimax function, which accepts board and player as the parameters. And the return type is iMinimaxReturnType. We will create an empty squares array and a pattern. Then check if it wins, then return a score. And check if player is O, then negative 10, otherwise 10. Then check if is draw, return the score to 0. Then we will create a moves, which is an iMinimaxReturnType array, and initial value is an empty array. Then we will loop through empty squares. We will put a player in mentioned move, and then we will get a result from the same function. Note that Minimax function is a recursive function. And then we will add the move into the moves array. And then undo the move. If player is O, then check if current score is greater than previous score. If yes, then return the current move, otherwise a previous move. Then return the best move. Otherwise, it will be the same as on here, but checks if current score is less than previous score. Then return the best move. And then create a function called getBestMove, which accepts board and player as parameters. Then returns an index value of a Minimax function. Let's add this into here. Board, player. Then let's go to a hard level. As you can see, this difficulty is hard and unbeatable. It is either a draw or an O as a winner. Here is a complete product. On the easy level, the game is extremely beatable because AI generates random move. But on a medium mode, AI is finding a blocking move, but game is still beatable. But on the hard mode, the game is unbeatable. And then here is a two-player mode of this game. That is it, guys. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my two channels, my main channel and my coding channel. Like, share, comment this video, and don't forget to join my Patreon. Have a nice day.